Well, hello everybody. I'm here with Richard Lancaster from Nailsea Methodist Church. Richard's a long-term member of Greenpeace, and we're going to have a short conversation about climate change and the environment. Sometimes we feel, don't we, that climate change is such an enormous problem that anything we as individuals or even as churches can do, it's just never going to be enough, is it? How can we engage with this seriously in our churches?
Well, the thing is that you're absolutely right. Climate change is a massive issue, and we do need systemic change, but individuals can have an impact, and things that we do in our everyday lives will make changes. And some of them are obvious things like, reducing our energy consumption or moving to renewable energy away from fossil fuels. Things like that are things which everyone's kind of familiar with. But there are some other things that aren't perhaps so obvious. Like, for instance, we all know about deforestation in the Amazon, but we don't necessarily think about that as being a climate change issue. We think of it as a sort of an environmental or a nature issue. But in fact, most of the deforestation in the Amazon is driven by three things: demand for meat, mainly the North American market, demand for soya, and demand for oil palm, for palm oil. And most of the soya that we import from this country that comes from the Amazon is actually to feed chickens and pigs. So depending on how much meat is in your diet, actually it has a direct link to what's happening in the Amazon. So there's some links that aren't so obvious, but one of the things that environmentalists have been doing is saying that everyone needs to reduce their meat consumption. We're not saying everyone has to become a vegetarian or vegan, but we're just eating too much. There are far more, something like, 30% of all of the animals on the planet are human beings, something like 4% are wild animals, and the rest, the 65% or something, are livestock, cattle, pigs, chickens, things like that.
So actually just reducing the amount of meat we eat, going from, 5 days a week to 4, or 7 days a week to 6, would be quite a big change. If you add up how many people are in our church, everybody cut out 1 day a week of eating meat, that could be quite a bit.
Yeah, it all adds up. And the other thing, which is something where you get into this thing about saying, well, what difference can I make? And also thinking, well, I'm not perfect. You say, well, I can't do it perfectly. I still need to drive sometimes. I need to fly to see relatives and things like that. And the point is that we don't need 1 in 100 people being the perfect environmentalist, never using any plastic and walking or cycling everywhere. What we want is the other 99 doing their best, because it's much better to have 99 doing their best and one wonderful person than having one wonderful person and the other 99 saying, well, I can never match them, therefore I won't bother. Because that gets us nowhere. We all have to try and do our best, and that's all we can do, really.
So food habits, we can all change a little bit and gradually in a direction away from meat. Are there any other things that everybody eats, don't they? Not everybody flies. Are there any other things that we all do that we could think about?
I mean, yeah, we do. Obviously, one of the problems, it was okay before the current kind of crisis that you could select a renewable energy supplier. And you pay a bit more, but at least you know that your energy is coming from renewable sources. It's a bit more difficult at the moment because a number of the energy suppliers have gone bankrupt or are in a receivership, or administration. But looking for your energy supplier is a good thing that you can do, and also just the kind of the things like planting trees. Trees are fundamental to our fight against climate change, so that rather than cutting down trees, which is what we're doing at the moment, we're deforesting not only in the Amazon but in many other places. Trees are a kind of a natural machine to suck carbon out of the atmosphere. So the more trees we can plant, the better. And if we start growing our own food, more food that we can get that's locally grown, rather than when I was a child, you were very aware of the seasons for food. You got you got strawberries right in June, and that was it. If you didn't get them before, you didn't get them after. There was a rush of them in June, and then that was it. They were over. Now we know we can get strawberries all year round. In the middle of winter, we can get strawberries. But we know also in our hearts that they've come from the other side of the world, and they've been grown in hothouses or wherever. So eating seasonally, growing your own food, those are all things that contribute. And they're small things, but they do make a difference.
That's brilliant. And just coming back to where we started, that we need systemic change. Is there anything that we can do just as citizens, or even as groups of citizens, to help move that in the right direction?
Politicians need to know that people care, and that this is and will be an electoral issue at the next election. And therefore, yeah, write to your MP, tell them, ask them what their stance is on climate change, what their stance is on net zero, and then say, you know, I'll vote for you if I have confidence that, among other things, climate is high on your agenda. Because otherwise, and this is where we come back to a matter of faith as well, that first of all, stewardship of God's creation is important, but also understanding that those who will be most affected by climate change, especially in the early days as the first impacts hit, are those who are the poorest and the most vulnerable and the least able to cope with the changes that are coming. So we know poor people in low-lying areas in Bangladesh are suffering floods. We know that people who are poor already in Africa are suffering droughts. And this is the sort of world that we're building. So not only are we not protecting the world, but in fact, those very people, the most vulnerable, that Jesus told us that we have a responsibility to help, are the ones who are going to be the most affected by this. So we have a duty, as well as having enlightened self-interest, that we all live on planet Earth and we've only got one. There's only one. There isn't a planet B. There's only,
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Richard. Plenty of food for thought. I hope that we can continue to pursue our calling as disciples of Jesus, but in an environmental way, and really take that seriously as part of what we believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.